Hello and welcome. It is Monday, the 15th of August, 2022. My name's Steve Pugh and I do something called a growth strategy podcast where I try and introduce you to interesting people that can kind of help your business or career. And what I always try and do as well is pick real people that run real businesses that hopefully you can kind of relate to. And we talk about their journey and how they got there and what they were like at school and that kind of thing, with the idea being that that could relate to you. This person could have like done something that you've been through, or likewise topics that we talk about and we kind of keep it fairly open and honest. You might be going through now, and it's that kind of thing of, I also like to pick people that I've kind of met in the past, and with Simon, I'll kind of touch on that in a second. But if you join us for the next kind of 30, 40 minutes, get involved in the comments. If you've got any questions or anything, drop them in the chat and I'll kind of bring them in. And yeah, if you just join us, hopefully you enjoy it. And Simon, there we go. Perfect. You're now live. So everyone can see you and hear you, which is good.
Great. Thanks for inviting me.
No worries. How's your Monday been? I know that you have your admin Mondays, which I'm very impressed with.
There's been quite a lot to sort out today, actually. I think we're going to talk about my visual fixation system a little bit later, but there was quite a big thing that happened over the weekend. So I've just been trying to sort all that out.
No, I think it's really funny that with, I don't know about you, but when you have a business and it's your baby, you it's a 7-day a week thing. It doesn't matter what day it is. If something happens, at least for me, I always want to keep going.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think, well, it's a good and a bad thing, isn't it? I guess, you're the one that's always contacted about the business. As you say, it's 7 days a week. So you never feel like you switch off, but I'm on holiday from this Saturday for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to forget about eyes and forget about business.
But the thing, I find this funny, and some people will disagree that it's the wrong approach, but almost where the business and everything around it is my hobby. So, some people play guitar or they do photography or whichever. For me, I'm not saying for you, but for me, I love the game of it. So actually when people, and don't get me wrong, I play on the Xbox. I do stuff to kind of switch off, go for a walk, go for a coffee. But I kind of love working on something. So whilst other people will think, what the hell are you doing on a Sunday going in to do stuff? I personally kind of love it a bit.
Yeah, I think because I've got an independent practice, and I think the difference with that is it's my own business and I can do whatever I want with it. I can buy the equipment I want. I can do the research I want. And I think that does make it a little bit different, because you're right. It is some little things turn into be hobbies, and then sometimes the hobbies turn into be work. So yeah, you are right. Yeah.
But what's quite funny is that you kind of mentioned before that you're into photography a little bit, that one of the big things that I've always loved. So my first ever business was a photography business. And I've always loved tech and cameras and stuff. So it gives me the reason to spend a fortune on this, it's a Canon 50mm f1.2 lens, which is $2,500 that I would never buy myself. But if it's for work and it's for podcasts,
well, it's fine. Similar thing. Yeah, similar thing at work. Obviously I'm an optician, and there's these little mites that live on your eyelashes called Demodex. And I bought a microscope for work to be able to look for the Demodex, but also to be able to photograph them and try and produce photos that nobody else has done. So yeah, I know what you mean. I do.
But so we actually first met, I know you asked me before.
Yeah.
So I used to be managing director of a company in Shildon. And what we used to do was prototype stuff, make stuff. We had a machine shop. And then as a mechanical engineer myself, I've always liked and appreciate people that make stuff, do stuff, because I know how hard it is. But also it was one of those jobs, still is, because what I do now, but it's almost to work with people that have a passion and a dream. And then how do you take the idea and actually kind of make it? So I do remember coming to your practice, and we had to sit down and you showed me the very, super early prototypes. And what I also love about kind of networking and staying in touch with people is with social media, you kind of get to keep track and just see what people are up to. And as someone that has made products in the past, I know how difficult it is to do, that I thought you'd be a brilliant guest on the podcast, because likewise, it's really hard to make stuff and then, hopefully share the journey.
Thank you very much. I think from my side, I didn't think it would be as difficult as it has been. Yeah. I think, did we meet before it was redesigned by the engineers at Durham?
I have no idea, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. But it's 6 years to get to this point, 6 years to get it onto the market, which I never really thought it would take as long as that.
Yeah.
And there's many different problems that we've had.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think, should we start with that? Because I think it's a really interesting thing. Yeah. Then we'll go to the backstory and stuff as well. So would you like to tell people about what it is, what it does?
Yeah, it's very simple. So I'm an optician. And as part of my job, I need people to engage with me. I need them to look where I want them to look at the chart or look at a light. And for people with learning disabilities or autism or with dementia, they find it difficult. They find it difficult to engage in an eye test. So it's very, very simple. I'm going to demonstrate it. I've got it here to demonstrate. So you can put something on a mobile phone that's going to keep somebody interested. So, for example, Peppa Pig. This clips into the device. You, as the optician, can see my eyes.
Yep.
And the patient is watching the video.
Wow. You know what? On camera, that works so well.
Yeah, cool. So it's very simple, but you can use it for all sorts of different measurements. So it was primarily invented to look at focusing, a patient's focusing ability, but you can use it to engage somebody when you're taking a photograph or just testing their eyes. Any direct line of sight examination.
I've got to ask you, how do you sell the product? Does that make sense?
Well, in some ways, it's a difficult product to sell.
No, just send them that 5 seconds of showing how it works. Done. That's it.
But if because every doctor, optician, dentist, everybody in the world feels like they're the best at their job.
Yes.
And if you're trying to say to somebody, I'm going to help you engage with your patients, the natural reaction is to say, well, I'm good at my job. I can engage patients fine. I don't need it. Yeah. So it is, in some ways, it's a little bit of a difficult sell, but hopefully it was launched relaunched at a trade fair in April, and it did seem to capture people's imaginations this time. So hopefully we're a bit closer to getting it accepted.
Because do you ever do much like social media for the business?
I'm really bad at social media. I mean, it should work really well on social media, and I do need to kind of get better at it, but I'm kind of...
I'll tell you what, just I'll clip up that 10 seconds, send it back to you. Just use that, because on this end of the camera, when you could see you flip it around, obviously it works very similar to an auto cue. Well, I mean, it's going to make you sound my age and things, but I'd never heard of a boomerang. When we were at the trade fair, somebody did a boomerang on Instagram, and that's been one of the most popular posts with that. I think it had around about 20,000 people look at it on LinkedIn. So yeah. Because by all means. But with I think it's funny that people like products that are very visual, and I'm starting to look at for the stuff that I do, how do we really communicate that and get out there, and get in different languages, how do you engage people? And it is very difficult that when you have a technical product or a service that you offer, trying to describe it in words is actually really difficult to do. But when what you just show me in 5 seconds, you kind of get it. And then it's funny actually that when in any kind of sales or marketing process, you would look at what are the barriers to purchase, barrier to entry. And by the sounds of it, the emotional barriers and blockers from other practitioners might actually be one of the bigger ones. I may be being a little bit unfair to them there, but I mean, one of the things I find difficult is that it does work. I've used the various different prototypes, and I've used my device for the last 2-3 years. But when I'm seeing a patient, they are my patient, and even though I've had loads of good reactions, I've had lots of good feedback and things, I don't feel like I can ask them about endorsing it, because it's kind of they're my patient, I'm working for them. Okay. So it's a bit of a strange dynamic, really. But you could always wait until after they've finished the treatment and or other and then ask for feedback, because referrals and recommendations. But I love it. I think it's great. And I think that was one of the things that almost, years ago when, there's a lot of, you always get approached about really crappy stuff that you don't really want to do, but someone wants to make a bookshelf out of a motorbike engine, and you're like, But for me personally, I always love anything that will genuinely help people and, is there and you kind of get it, which is quite cool.
Well, it does genuinely help people. I just need to get it to enough hospitals and places that people can see it working.
Yeah. But I must say, by the feel of it, it's a passion project which probably isn't driven by money. Or am I wrong with that? Or?
Well, it's not driven by money at all, really, because I'd love to see it out there everywhere. But that's a good and a bad thing. Yeah. Because as you said, this is my baby. This is so it's going to be very difficult at some point to let it go, really. So it is a good and a bad thing, I think.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's rare. I think 1% of people, it's a small percentage of people that actually go through life, have an idea and see it through. Everyone has ideas, but actually people are willing to put in the time and the effort and the 6 years and stuff to take that idea. And then, I imagine that you've had barrier after barrier for different things to just keep going and not think, oh, sod it. Just,
well, it's not so much, it's much, yeah. They talk about lift, don't they? You talk about lift. Is it worth the lift to get it out there? And yeah, I'm still not quite sure whether it's been worth, well, hopefully in the next year or so it'll be worth it, but it's taken quite a lot to get to this point.
yeah.
It's patented now in the UK and America. It's pending in Canada, Australia, and Europe.
Oh, cool.
And even just that process is quite costly, obviously.
Yeah. Fair enough. Cool. Is that your phone that keeps going? I don't mind if you want to.
Oh, is it? Sorry. I'll turn it off. I didn't think it was.
No, maybe I just want to make sure it's not on my end. It's just the either way.
Oh no, it's off. It's off.
I don't know. We might have a phantom bug somewhere. It is what it is. I really hope it's not me. It doesn't really matter. Which is cool.
Oh, it's on, maybe it's my laptop actually. Sorry. How do you turn the laptop off?
I tell you what, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
No, it's cool. It's just the I'm one of these people. I was worried it was me and I was just checking. Anyway.
Sorry.
So one of the things that I really kind of love to do is go into people's kind of backstory. And the reason to do that is that when you get a feel for where someone grew up, what they were like at school, if they went to uni or not, that kind of thing, I think it's really interesting because when we grew up, we didn't necessarily have the internet as we do now. That likewise, when people start to form ideas about what could I do with my life, and I quite like the idea of doing that, but I'll just look at what is that. I think there's a great way to almost share knowledge for people that have been through a journey. So I always like to ask people, because also with entrepreneurs and inventors and stuff, you have a lot of similar character traits as well, and that's why I love to kind of dig into it. So whereabouts did you grow up?
In Durham. Haven't really moved very far. So I was born actually around about 3 miles away from where I live at the minute.
Wow.
And about 2 miles from the practice.
Fair enough. And then what were you like at school? I imagine you did quite well.
I knew you were going to ask that, but I was trying to think. I'm not sure I can remember that far back. I don't think I was. I mean, I'm still not a businessman. I don't consider myself a businessman. I'm rubbish at business, really. I think in terms of when you're talking about the device and things like that, I know I get bored. I get bored easily. I'll come up with an idea and go off on one for a couple of months, and some things work, some things don't work, and then you get interested in something else. I can't remember being like that at school. I think that was just starting the business, I think.
So then what did you do A-levels? Did you go to uni?
Yeah, A-levels, and then I was at uni at Manchester, UMIST. I was, UMIST doesn't exist anymore.
Does it not? I almost went to UMIST.
Yeah.
And what did you study?
So it's a vocational degree. It's optometry. So you do 3 years at a university, then a year training under somebody. And I did my training at Sunderland Eye Infirmary, and I still work there a day a week. And I opened my practice. So I opened practice 20 years ago this year, because it's 20-year anniversary.
Yeah, because that's one of the things I was going to say is that when you said before about how you're not a business person and an entrepreneur, you kind of are. And it's just, but the percentage of businesses that make it to 20 years is pretty impressive.
I don't think, when you said about the money, I think that's the one thing that I've always done is I've never really thought about the money. All of the decisions, whether to produce the device or to do the business or all the different directions we go in, it's not, I don't think I think about the money first. It's the doing a good job and making a difference first. And I think if you're then good at the job, then the money comes afterwards.
Yeah. But I think that's the best way that everything should be, because especially now, we spoke before about how for a lot of things, social media is really important, where you're trying to get a feel for this whole Simon Sinek thing about your why, your reason, whatever. You do see people who, in my opinion, do stuff for the wrong reasons. So they run a business to do something you see online, it's something called drop shipping, where they buy stuff here, they turn it around, they sell it over there, and they try and make a few quid doing it. But they're doing it to try and get rich, not because they actually care about the stuff or the product or the customer. And these things soon fade away, because actually when you hit some barriers or whatever, people give up. As well, when people genuinely have a love for a product or a service or a topic or whatever, and it's the kind of thing that you would probably do even if you didn't get paid for it, that passion does, for me at least, come across. They're the people that you kind of want to work with. Does that make sense? And then one of the reasons I love to do long form podcasts is because over the course, like half an hour, you get a really good feel for someone that you never get, or you wouldn't have got 10, 20 years ago if it was just print media or
Yeah.
standard stuff. And I think it is really important. So something must have kept you kind of driving away to kind of do that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I like the feeling of helping people, and I like the feeling of helping people that nobody else can. So I think that's why we got involved in all the complex cases that we see and people with learning disabilities. I don't want to get all heavy in a podcast, but like I guess the difficulty is that certain complex conditions aren't really funded very well. And if you look at us as a practice, so like we're a very mixed practice, you know, so we have very kind of cheap glasses, we have very expensive glasses, you know, we've got Lindbergh glasses that cost, you know, £400 or £500. And I think we can only do some of the really good things that we do because it's funded by some people buying more expensive products. And that's a little bit frustrating. It would be nice to be able to fund the things we do just because of the things we do, rather than have to, you know, sell premium products. You know, so it's a bit of a mix.
Yeah, cool. I should say, Phil, thank you for the comment. But I think a lot of businesses have that. I have that. So my startup is about trying to bring free business education to the world. And I'm massively passionate that I get how education can help improve lives. And especially because me growing up, I could never have afforded to do certain things. And now that I can, but to fund all of that, because I chose not to get external funding because I want to give it away for free, I have to do a lot of consultancy and stuff, which is my equivalent of selling the different classes. But it's to get the leverage and get that rock moving and just get some momentum. That'll take me 2-3 years from like where I am now. But it's the picking your poison that I have the bigger vision that I want to do. Because, you know, one thing that I've thought of, and I think a lot of people that are freelance that kind of work for themselves, is that if they only ever do consultancy work or projects for people, but they're not necessarily building something in the same way we are, it's like doing 4 or 5 part-time jobs, and it can feel a bit soulless at sometimes because you don't feel like you're making momentum. As where the products that you choose to sell, it's enabling the dream, in which case, brilliant. You know, everyone has parts of their business or job.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've probably been a bit, because the products we choose to sell, we still choose to sell. So I mean, we're going into like a very sustainable way of doing things now, and we've got every single sustainable frame that's on the UK market at the minute. It's about 15-16 ranges of frames, and we're going, and I think that's quite good, because if we're selling something, then we're endorsing it. So I wasn't trying to say that we were kind of selling just for the sake of selling, but it's I think it is sometimes frustrating that I think some of the best things we do at the practice, I don't think are funded by themselves.
Yeah. And but my point of almost mentioning it was that for anyone, not so much for you, but anyone watching this, that's quite common. Does that make sense? And it's, you know, everyone has, a prime example, if you pick sports cars, I've always been a fan of kind of cars. That if you look at Porsche or Ferrari or even big fashion brands, so fashion brands want to create and design and push the boundaries and look at cool stuff. But if you take Chanel or Gucci or Burberry or whatever, they don't actually make any money on the fashion stuff, which is the couture stuff that you see in Milan or catwalks. They actually make the money off perfumes and bags and stuff. But that enables them to follow the dream. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think it's going to get really heavy, but I think optometry is a very strange industry because as a profession, if you think of any professional, teachers, doctors, you come out of university, you come out of your training and you know nothing, and then you work under somebody, you learn your trade, you learn until you get to a certain point where you're responsible for lots of different people and you can kind of teach lots of different people. Optometry, you don't ever do that. I think you come out of university, you're expected to know everything from day one. There's very little support, and then you always stay at the same level. It's a funny old industry, but I maybe we shouldn't get depressing on it.
Well, no, but when I mentioned at the start about how talking about real stuff, because this is one of my pet peeves I see on YouTube all the time, is that I follow a lot of startup stuff and fundraising stuff and whatever. And the dream that most of them sell is you create a startup to create the world's biggest, best optometry brand. But the dream they sell is almost, if you can raise £5 million or £100 million, you've won. as I disagree. It's like, if you can build a business which is
Yeah.
profitable without the money, then you've won, because you've reached steady state kind of something. Is
Yeah.
actually I think the things that are celebrated and almost the mechanisms are wrong at the moment for what a lot of people talk about, because they focus on the wrong stuff that they get celebrated on, likes, views, whatever. As I have mad crazy respect for anyone that's built a business and stuck it out for 20 years, because that takes real grit and kind of determination.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing is, I don't want to get to the end of my career and think, gosh, I've made a lot of money in the practice. I want to get to the end of my career and think, I've built that, I'm going to leave that, and we're a community practice, and we've made a difference, and it's going to be still there. And that's what drives me more than the money, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think after, realistically, you earn, it depends on your family and stuff, but over a certain amount, you don't really need any more money. And I think then in some ways, pay myself less now than I've ever been paid for a while, but I get my fulfillment through actually trying to create stuff and talk to people. And it doesn't matter how much I get paid, it's about other stuff. And that's often with a lot of people, it's called ikigai, but it's almost trying to find the dream of something that you really enjoy doing, almost regardless of the metrics, which myself 10 years ago, it was about the car and the salary and the status and the stuff. And I think it's interesting just as you kind of go through your kind of career. So out of interest, what first prompted you to want to start a business? Is it just the path for what you do?
It was probably more the being my own boss than anything. I think, it's using the same analogy, if I want to buy a bit of kit, if I want to do a bit of research, I can do it. I don't have to write a business case to somebody, or I don't have to kind of justify why I'm doing it. I can just go and do it. And I think that's why I could never work for anybody else. And I would always want to be self-employed, because I've got that freedom to do it. So I think it's the freedom that drove me to do it more than anything else.
Yeah, I must say, it is quite common where if you have a partnership where you have two owners, 50-50 owner, that I often get brought in when they kind of don't really agree. And it's that balance of where you might want to do X and someone else wants to do Y, and you're kind of in a stalemate. That rightly or wrongly, for me in business, I think you are better always having a deciding person, CEO, sole owner, so that you can just do that and then do this. Because again, one of the things for what you want to do, often you have to be nimble and change and make decisions. I think that really slows down. So say for instance, I don't know if you have any large multinational competitors, but you probably will. But for them to get anything done, they have to get board approval, might have to go to shareholders, there's layers of management, there's reporting, there's time. As where you could decide in 10 minutes time, you know what, I'm going to scrap that product, I'm going to do this. And that ability to just pivot and change and do stuff, for me, I think it's both the fun of it, but actually quite important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I guess, again, I don't want to flit around a little bit too much, but I've just had an article published. It's my first peer-reviewed article in a scientific journal. And that's all come from that whole process. So it was it's basically humans dark and light adapt.
Yep.
So moths do as well. And I was able to use one of our specialist scanners at work to show that process, and it's the first time in the world it's ever been done.
Wow.
But again, that whole process comes from I'm interested in photography, what shall we do this? Shall I see if I can do this? And then it's gone to has led to a scientific article. Yeah.
What was your process for that? Because when I was doing my PhD, I have 2 papers which have my name on, but it was the process. And this is one of the things that really got me with academia. And it was something that I used to work overseas, 2008 recession hit. And the thing that really got me excited was the thought to go back and help be a university teacher and work with students, help encourage them. But to do that, they often wanted you to do research and stuff, and that's about writing papers and stuff. And the one thing which I never knew, but kind of happened, it might be different for what you've done, was that you have other universities that do research the same kind of thing. So for me, it was about something called tribology, which is the science of wear and lubrication.
Yeah.
But when you actually put forward a peer-reviewed paper, you basically say, look, this is what we think, this is all the evidence. And then people shoot it down.
Well,
and
yeah.
It can be quite soul-destroying.
Well, yeah, the peer review process, that's going to take a podcast all in itself. But as you probably know, a single author paper is much more difficult to get published in peer review because it implies that it's a single belief, and it's much more likely, you need to get co-authors. But I tried to get co-authors for this paper, and I couldn't get anybody interested. And I think part of the problem was that I'm an optometrist. I look at eyes, and really I was writing an entomology paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I think anything in medicine and anything that crosses professional boundaries is very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And this, because it crossed professional boundaries, I couldn't get any entomologist that would co-author the paper with me. And exactly right. So the peer review process is, you have to have peer review, but in some ways, the peer review process will always water down the ideas of the paper, because when I wrote this article, I had lots of different. I mean, some of them might have been a bit far-fetched and a bit wild, but it made it more interesting to read. And all of those got knocked out, and in all of the rewrites and what the peer reviewers criticized about it, they all went. So the actual article, I hope the article is quite good. If you read it, it's okay. But I think the original article was a bit more interesting to read because it's had a few more theories in.
But I think what got me was that, so one of my friends now, he's still a philosophy lecturer at Sheffield University. And we were talking it through. So he's like a lifetime academic. So 20 years, he's done that. I kind of did all this stuff. But it was the fact that if you could have a rival university that's researching something similar, they will poo-poo on purpose your research because they want to publish first. And it's that balance of that. I didn't like that for me. And I have massive respect that often the biggest jumps in terms of innovation and growth will come from someone with a different level of expertise, seeing a problem from a different area and almost working on it. So exactly what you did is arguably where you're going to get your biggest incremental jumps. And it's horrible that people might reject it because, but he's not from our club.
Well, if the peer review process works properly, you shouldn't get that. But
it doesn't. It's when humans get in the way. And I like to play things with a straight bat. And it's when people abuse their position or reject things or slag it off or whatever. And I was on the wrong side of it for a while, because mine was to do with aircraft landing gear pin joints. And I won't bore you with it, but it was to do with the lubrication mechanisms when they rotate backwards and forwards. And Baron, I was doing this all day, every day, and I kind of knew it inside out. And when people are like, no, need more evidence. And it's like, no, I've got you thousands of data points. No, and they just literally shit on it. And it was just, it was heartbreaking.
There was a little bit of that in the peer review, but it was, I don't know, I think it was probably fair, but there was just bits in it that were taken out that I would have liked to have kept in, just to make it more exciting. I mean, anything like this, because you're talking about hobbies and things. It was a bit of a hobby to do, and it was quite nice to see it published. So it'd be great to actually, if it led somewhere. And I think the fact that it got watered down it means it's less likely to generate interest, I think.
But you know what you could always do, because now we've got the internet that we never used to have, is to publish your own, unfiltered thoughts on your own blog or website. Because this is what used to happen in the olden days, is where Isaac Newton would write a paper on something, it would get published. And then by the time it would get to someone in India 3 months later, because it's traveled by ship, and they'd spot something, then they'd get back in touch. The point is you can almost circumvent the people that are taking stuff out.
But because I'm not really, I would love to speak to, if there's any entomologists watching, I would love to talk to some entomologists about this and about all the things that's possible with this technology. So I think I'll just have to be a little bit careful that I don't rubbish myself even before I start, because it was published the end of June, and I think it's had about 800 people download the article. So it's not, it's not like dead popular, but
it doesn't matter. This is something, again, you see with business, is that people ask me sometimes about how many views do you get? How many people want to see the stuff? And it doesn't matter. It's actually more to do with, as I say, for my consultancy business, like I have 5 kind of retained clients at the moment. If I was to get 6, brilliant. But it's about people that actually find value in what you want to do, that appreciate the time, hard work and effort that goes into that. That it doesn't matter if I had 800,000 views. It's about the 1 or 2 people that really kind of get it. And then actually the smart people that go, oh, you know what, we could use that. And you could try this. What do you think about that? Do you want to collaborate? And it's that process that, it takes time. And it might even be in 5-10 years time, someone finds it and then finds the application that they're just not ready. Yeah. There's loads of stuff that wasn't it only recently that one of Da Vinci's helicopter designs actually got built and worked. But the point is, okay, he's dead. But
what are you saying? This article's like a Da Vinci article.
that's exactly what I'm saying.
I'll take that.
One of the things that we mentioned, and it was both when we were looking at scheduling the podcast, but then likewise you mentioned it kind of before. You mentioned that your son has ASD.
He's autistic, yeah.
And I was going to ask you, for other parents that might have new children or whichever, how old is he?
So Max is 15.
Oh, cool. I was going to say, how have the last 15 years been, and actually any tips, advice, what was the experience like?
If you're going to say, I think if you're saying for other parents, just don't listen to anybody at all. Because I think every person with autism is completely individual, and each family circumstance is completely individual, and it's difficult. So in Max's case, he has a condition called global developmental delay, which means that he's delayed in 2 or more large areas in speech and motor control. Also means that they don't really know what's wrong. It's kind of like a general term.
Okay.
And he didn't have the autism label for quite a number of years, because I didn't really see the point. He still had a special needs school, and we don't see the point in labeling him just for the sake of it. But I don't know where your listeners are, but in the UK, going from child to adult services is a bit of a nightmare in the UK. So we thought that he could do with a label for that, and that's why we went through the autism diagnosis.
Yeah. But it's funny that with, it's everyone has different talents and hopes and aspirations and stuff, and it's almost where, like, what does he want to do when he's older?
So he has a learning disability as well.
Okay.
Being autistic and learning disability are 2 different things. Roughly around about half of the people with autism will also have a learning disability. So he wouldn't really get the sense of what he would want to do when he's older. Although at the minute we have chickens, he loves chickens, and and one of the days at the school he goes to a farm, kind of mucks out the pigs and things like that. So he's probably something like that, I would imagine.
Is that what?
Or actually, I think he wants to be a YouTuber as well.
Fair enough. Well, if I can give him any tips, I'm terrible. Yeah. But the funny thing is that because of the internet, it's super niche. It just is. That's how it works. That yes, you get your big YouTubers that are just the stars, but you will have, entomology nerds that love moths or whichever, and you could have a channel just on chickens or autism or whichever, or your own journey with autism, anything. And there will be people around the world that relate to that, and that that could genuinely be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very personal journey for everyone. I think it's a difficult thing to talk about and make public, I guess, because good days are good days, bad days are really bad. So I think there's lots of issues with that. I mean, Max actually, I mean, we did do this little YouTube channel, because he likes the YouTubers that do all the prank people. Yeah. So we did these little Max's pranks where we filmed kind of little practical jokes. But personally speaking, I wouldn't have wanted that to go live, because I think Max's speech is a particular way, and I think it's putting him at risk of things that he shouldn't be at risk of yet. But it's still, I respect his hustle and what he wants to do, and it's something we want to talk about, because then likewise that there will be people that might hear how you've described and what you've talked about and really relate to that as well. And but you're completely right. It's a everyone's different and everyone's journey is different. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to anybody if it would help them about the journey, but I think it would be wrong to say in any sense this is the way to do things, because I think everybody is so individual and so and circumstances are so different. And I think unfortunately in the learning disability world, I think there's too much of that all over the place. Is that this is the way you should do things, this is the diet, this is the thingy, so I think it would be wrong in any way to say. No, I respect that. Would you be happy to tell me about the Giles Gate Story Challenge? Yes, so Giles Gate Story Challenge. Well, is another example as how I kind of come up with a little idea, then get excited by it, and then it just kind of probably got too busy for it. So I like books. I like read. That's my collection of signed first editions at the top there. Nothing that's worth anything, but they're all. So it was 2019 World Book Day was coming up, and we wanted to do something for World Book Day. So one of my staff had an idea, said, why don't we do a short story competition? So I thought about it, and then 2 days later I was right, we're going to do a short story competition, but we're going to illustrate it and we're going to self-publish it and we're going to do it for charity. So we started it 2019. At the time I was a trustee of Grace House Hospice, and Grace House Short Break and Respite. And so we got the children to write their stories about eyes. There's a friend of mine illustrated the winning story, and we self-published it, and we sold the book for charity. And I think we raised £2,000 that year.
Wow.
And then obviously the year of the pandemic was a little bit difficult, but we've run the Giles Get Story Challenge 3 times now, and I'm just about to launch the Giles Get Story Challenge 4 next month.
Did you say that you had one next to you were going to show?
You know, I did say that, and then I've left it over there 2 seconds.
Don't worry.
So this is the best thing, because you've got to say, think in your head what a self-published book by an optician will look like. But I think this looks way posher, way posher.
You might have to move it a bit close to your head. There we go. That is actually very good. As someone that has done publishing and stuff, I appreciate how hard it is. Again, it's
well, it's an experience.
But the things but one of the things that you're looking at is that, yes, it's brilliant to use it to raise money, which is absolutely fantastic. But it's also, there'll be a pride to see your own or someone else's short story actually somewhere and something they can keep.
So two quick things, sorry, because I'll waffle on about this for ages, but yes, you're exactly right. And that's the whole point of this, is to try and get children excited about writing and proud of what they do. So the first year and the third year, we organised a book signing at Durham Waterstones, and that's the best thing, because we organise it like a book signing. So the winning authors are there, people come in and they ask them to get their book signed, and that's hopefully something they're going to remember forever, because it was such a good thing. But since we're online, the second year of the competition, we couldn't do that because it was the pandemic. So we did a launch video that took me absolutely ages to do. Have you heard of the Supernaturals? You know the Supernaturals? Yes, yeah. So I contacted the Supernaturals to use their song. They were very, very nice people. They didn't want any credits. And they said that, you know, if I put it on YouTube, it would get pulled down because of the copyright. Mm-hmm. So they gave me a unpublished version of the song, Smile. And we built the video around that song, and it's awesome. Go and have a look type Giles Get Story Challenge into YouTube, and hopefully, because that should have gone viral. That's a great video. Go and have a look at it.
I will check it out, and I'll put the link in the post when I kind of share this as well. But it's stuff like that, you know. It's just what I think rarely comes across, and again, it's part of the reason why I love to do kind of podcasty stuff, is that I think your passion for all these things really comes through. And that's what people like and love. And it's just, you know, it's great in a community that you have people that do stuff like that, that if everyone was super siloed and just focused on business or just boring stuff, you'd lose a little bit of magic, I think. So
yeah, I really like it. It's one of the little side projects that I really like. Yeah. I'm quite proud of.
I was going to say, going back to the visual kind of fixation system, what is your dream for the future? Where would you like it to be? What in the best case that it could play out, what would happen?
I know it works, so I would love to see it available in all hospitals at least. I think in the business plan when we looked at it was to try and get it in all eye hospitals in the UK and 30% of opticians, and it would be great if we could get it something like that.
Yeah. Why just the UK?
Well, sorry, not just I mean. Again, I'm not going to get depressing again, but
you've got your patents in America and Canada hopefully soon, and
it's a much easier sell in America and Canada. I think the way that the NHS is set up and the way that the healthcare is set up in the UK, it's always going to be a little bit of a difficult sell in the UK. But the way that healthcare is set up in the US and Canada, it should be a lot easier. But I'm obviously not very international. So I have no contacts really over in America. So I think I'm gaining contacts, and we're trying to get it over there, but it's just going to take a little bit of time,
But I
really.
was going to say just one day at a time. And it's just,
Yeah.
you don't have to solve it in one day. Just
Oh yeah.
little baby steps, just one contact, one Google search, and you never know which domino is going to make it fall.
Yeah, I know, but I'm 47 now. I haven't got that long left. It's taken 6 years to get to this point.
I don't think 6 years is that bad, if that makes sense. One of my fellow friends who I've done some stuff with on the channel, she invented a unique type of cot to save lives and lots of stuff. And that's taken her 10 years. And now
Right.
she's looking at licensing an IP, but then arguably now, unless it's fallen through, it could really kind of take off. But the point, it just takes time.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the one of the best examples I can tell you about it working, this was probably about 2-3 years ago. It was with an earlier prototype. So I work in the hospital, and obviously you can see the notes before somebody comes in, and it was an autistic boy, and all the way through the hospital notes, it was kind of no cooperation, no cooperation, no
yeah.
cooperation. So when he came in, I didn't really give him a chance. I had the device out, and I just did the eye test, but it engaged him straight away, and he was fine, and we got the result, and it was fine. It was from me, it was fine. And when I turned to the mum and said, it's okay, we've done it, she burst into tears, because it turned out that that was the fourth appointment. Every single time he'd been forced to have drops in, screamed the place down, and she'd been told that if he doesn't cooperate this time, he's going under general anesthetic. So she was all kind of het up for this, if he's not cooperating. So yes, it doesn't happen very often, those cases, but for those cases, it works great. So it'd be really nice to see it in every eye hospital.
But things just for that one person can make such a huge difference. You know what I mean? And that's almost when stuff like this can really make a difference. It's always easy to look at the big picture. I want to sell 10,000 units and I want to do this and I want to do that. But when you take it on an individual level, the actual people, that mum who was worried about looking after her son, and it made a real difference. And it's just that's the magic that I guess you get.
Well, that's going back to what you said before, because I'm rubbish at social media, and actually, it would be great to have a network of people that have this device, so that parents can actually go on social media, find out who has one of those, so that you're able to do it. But it's like time to set that up.
Yeah. But fingers crossed. But the more you talk about it, and do you get involved in any kind of communities for autism groups or that kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, so we, just because of my own patients, and we're quite involved in the Down syndrome groups. Down syndrome seems to be one of those places where there's lots of Facebook groups and lots of kind of community groups that people kind of keep together. Just so happens in our area, less so with the autism groups, but it seems to be the Down syndrome groups that people kind of share things around.
Oh, cool. So within every interview, I always like to, because it's been really genuinely fascinating to hear your story and some of the stuff you've done, and show your passion kind of really kind of comes across and stuff. Would you be happy to share, if you have any, like the best piece of advice you've ever had?
Do you know, I thought you might ask something similar, and I was trying to think, and I was trying to make it a bit businessy.
It doesn't have to be businessy, because the beauty of it is, especially just purely selfishly for me, this is like my 100th interview, so I've had loads of businessy ones. I have no problem it not be anything. It's about life. It's
I think it's probably a well-known phrase, and it's probably been said before, but it was said to me, and it's something that's I always kind of think back on. But it was kind of it was to forget about the money, try and be the best you can be at whatever you're doing, and then the money will come.
Yeah.
And I think it's been said lots of times. It was said to me years ago. Yeah, I think it's quite a true thing.
No, I agree, and I think I think too many people focus on the money side to it as well. I think actually it's the fulfillment, the contentment, the happiness, the challenge is actually, I think, what for me at least keeps driving you. And it's that when you find that, you'll never get to the finish point, but actually it will, or exactly as you said, if you find something you're passionate about, it'll really kind of come good. And then you've also been in business for just over 20 years, which is still pretty impressive. If you were to give advice to your younger self, and it can be you when you first set out, it could be you 7 years ago, say, I know you've got this idea, but it's not worth it. Whatever it is, if you were to give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Learn to delegate. I'm dreadful for kind of keeping things to myself, and then things get too busy and you haven't got the time for anything.
I empathize. I brought in more help recently as well for that exact same reason. That it's when you've got the bigger dream, things, your day job, the fires you need to fight, the stuff you need to do will always take over. And just, yeah, I completely agree to kind of just keep things ticking over, when you don't always have time to. I think that's a great one, and it's relevant to me this week, just kind of setting that stuff up, which is cool as well. Is there anything you would like to talk about or plug before we go?
No, I don't think so. No, I really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat.
No, cool. So this all gets clipped up and it'll go on to YouTube and Facebook and lots of other kind of different places. I promise I will clip up just that 10 seconds because it's amazing. It's the best thing ever.
So let's try it again.
Well, you just want to see Peppa Pig again. And then just for everyone else while Simon does that, when this gets shared onto Spotify and iTunes and Google and all of the other kind of places, there are, give or take, 100 other guests that I've kind of spoke to in the past as well that might resonate with what you do or what you want to do. And likewise, it's sharing passionate people in our community that hopefully you might want to kind of connect with as well. So just as we close, is it not working?
No, it is. Yeah, so it's just got an advert on. That's the only thing on YouTube. You got to try and get videos that don't have adverts, because you don't. The idea is it's not just Peppa Pig. It's whatever engages somebody. So I've had Coronation Street, I've had Steps, I've had whatever. So opticians see in their eyes, and then we've got.
I thought you were going to do that, but I thought it was going to be this interview and it was going to and it spirals and goes crazy.
I should have done that, shouldn't I? I should have done that.
It doesn't matter. But no, genuinely, thank you for your time. It's been a real pleasure to kind of catch up. I'll definitely kind of stay in touch, and then I'll also share any links to do with the different videos you mentioned and the good causes and that kind of thing. And honestly, it's just, keep up the good work in terms. I love the idea that with the short stories, the book signing thing's genius. I really love that because people would remember that. So, if that makes sense. And there is something special. I have two, no, actually there's a few signed books at home. One's actually Donald Trump, and this is before he went into politics, so it's nothing political. I actually bought my wife, when she got promoted to partner, a first edition Agatha Christie from 1952, wow, signed by Agatha Christie. Wow. Cost me a fortune. And then there's a few others with football players and stuff as well. And actually, I don't know if you watch them, but the SES Who Dares Wins with some of their characters, I've got a few of their books as well. But the point is, people genuinely love stuff like that. And I think it is something special. What were you going to say?
Yeah. And I was going to say my probably best one is Ian Banks. I've got the Wasp. Remember the Wasp Factory?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I got a signed Billy Connolly one as well.
Nice.
To go with the hair.
Yeah.
The hair at the minute.
Now that you've said it. But no, honestly, I genuinely love stuff that people will generally remember. That's it's very cool. I like that.
It is quite weird because you do. I always think it's quite weird that we've been in business 20 years and we see some patients that are leaving at university that I first saw as toddlers, and I still think of the place as a hardware shop because when I bought it was a hardware shop, and I still think it's weird that those people will always remember the opticians on the corner. It'll always be the opticians. And the Gilesgate Story Challenge to me is a little bit it's a bit of a side project. It's a bit of a fun thing.
But to other people.
When you sit and it's on the bookshelf, then it's proper. It's, and I think I do like that. Yeah.
No, I think it is. But no, genuinely, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to kind of catch up. And this will all get clipped up. So in a few days' time, I'll tag you in a highlightsy kind of thing.
Okay.
And then, stay in touch and keep up the good work.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.